Welcome back. It's time for the weekend review for the S&P 500 ES Futures. Today is September 21st. It is Sunday. We're going to get right into it. We're going to make this short and sweet because everybody knows we are just moving up. So the real question becomes, where do we buy and what are the levels? Well, let's get right into it. First and foremost, as you know, I like to take a look at the weekly TPO. Gives us an idea of where value is. And first and foremost, so you know, this monster right here was 4 weeks of accumulation that we talked about in some previous videos, and I went ahead and put them all together just to kind of give you an idea of what we're working with here. So we sat in here in balance for 4 weeks, and then of course once they broke out, we started to push higher. Okay, cool, awesome. With that being said, the push higher left some severe inefficiencies in the previous weekly profile, and of course this push up here also gave us some inefficiencies. So we're gonna look at these in particular and really kind of focus on what's happening here. So I drew this, we have a low volume node on the weekly TPO at 66.84. I'm gonna end up removing that, but I wanted to show you because it lines up perfectly with the daily that we have at 66.85, which I really like. One of the other things that I noticed about this profile that I haven't seen in quite some time is the significant amount of volume that was put in up here. I mean, look at all this buying and selling. And more importantly, look what happened right here at the weekly TPO. This was a clear indication that these sellers right here all got absorbed, and as soon as they couldn't sell anymore, we had this significant push, and you see it just turned massive amount of blue as we went up and really didn't get any more heavy selling until we got to the highs essentially on Friday. So, you know, as you've probably heard before, this is one of the most hated rallies of all time. And, you know, it's rough. That basically means you missed it if you say that. But at the end of the day, it is hard to get on this because the quality of trades are extremely low quality and the volume has been really low. We came right into rollover. We had FOMC. We had all this stuff. And it's just been hard to get on this for, you know, unless you were in from lower. And so, you know, with that being said, we did have a Fed rate announcement. The Fed's got on the horn and they announced that they lowered rates 25 basis points and that they're going to continue to do 2 more rate lowerings before the end of the year. So we have that headwind, we have that tailwind for us that essentially is going to continue to push assets, stocks and risk assets higher. More than likely gold and silver will follow suit as well as they continue to devalue the dollar. These assets have no choice but to rise in price. So they have to compensate for what they're losing in the dollar. So with that being said, here's the areas that I want you to focus on. We have 66.84, which is our pivot, also the daily that I told you. And then we have this weekly POC here at 66.6850. Like this spot a lot. And like I said, it's clearly a line in the sand here between buyers and sellers. And the reason that's important is we have a weekly leg up there a daily leg up at 66.6450, a beautiful daily that is going to be our continuation for higher. Now, looking at the TPO, and it's the same when we look at the candlesticks, and I'll show you as they line up. And move below 66.48 is going to send us down. Okay, it's going to send us down essentially to clean up this big inefficiency in the profile here. Your target on this short would be 66.17 on the weekly and actually 66.13 on the daily, which we'll get to, which brings us right back down into this key area here. We had a previous weekly point of control here at 65.91, more big selling that got absorbed. There's actually a 4-hour untested level there, which we'll get into very shortly. And if they move below this area, which is basically 65.83, so move below this cluster, we're going to come down and we're going to fill all this in, okay? And we don't really have too awful much for support until we get to 65.52, which is another large TPO ledge here. I'll show you on the candlestick chart too. It lines up perfectly with the significant 4-hour we had at 65.5475. You guys are going to remember all these levels when I show you the charts, so it'll make a lot more sense. But this is tested, and a move below this area will indeed come down and more than likely fill in this big low volume area here again. And when they do, we have another very large TPO shelf. There was a lot of activity here. We can see they spent a lot of time here because each one of these blocks represents a period of time. And there is an untested daily down here as well. So it would not surprise me, and this is kind of how I'm looking at this. We're looking at it for this area to play, come down here, fill this up. We either continue to make new highs, which I think we certainly can, But when they're done, at some point, we're going to come down and we're going to lose this 48 spot or get below the 48 spot, which is a 4 hour. We're going to come down. We're more than likely going to play this 91 spot. And then, indeed, we're going to have to come fix this profile at some point. So there's no way to know exactly what sequence they're going to do, but it's pretty obvious from the profile here. We got a lot of market inefficiencies that happen from both FOMC and rollover, and all this crap needs cleaned up. So let's get into the candlestick charts. Actually, before I do that, take a look at the daily profile. Pull this over for you guys. I know there's a lot of inefficiencies. As you guys know, these blue things here means they derive from the profile. You can see we have some excess here on this profile from Thursday that runs us down to 72, and then essentially down into this really significant spot. We showed you all this selling on the weekly TPO. This is a monster. This is actually a composite here of 2 days. I put them together just because they were overlapped, and you can really see the significant amount of selling here that got absorbed right at the POC, and then they shifted to the long. And so this will all make sense here shortly, because remember I told you this is essentially where the daily leg is at, and we have all this selling absorption that will more than likely give us a response. But again, underneath this 66.84, you can see all this inefficiency down here, extremely low volume here, right? And so we know that we're going to start targeting basically all this inefficiency here, okay? And so I wanted you guys to see that and see how it was derived. So when we start looking at the candlestick chart, you're going to be like, oh, okay, I get it, all right? So let's go ahead and move right into the daily candles right now. And we have the daily weekly. So obviously the weekly is just on a moon mission. It's really nothing to look at here. Our big weekly pivot is going to be 64.29 above below. Put it on your charts. Don't know if we'll see it anytime soon, but certainly a level to have on here, as this is, what is this? 300 points lower at this point, right? 67, 65, 64. Yep, 300 points lower. Insane. Okay, so it is there regardless. And the major weekly leg in is all the way down at 62.68. What this means basically is we can come all the way down. This thing could sell off hard as hell. As long as we don't lose the 62.68, we are still bullish on the weekly time frame, and it's just going to take a lot to bring this thing down right now. There's no reason to be looking to short this unless it's for more than a scalp, because we're just moving up. I mean, we've had all signs point to that. We have Fed rate announcements. We've got a golden cross on the 100 over 200. I mean, we know that this has basically got another year or two of this nonsense, and so it's great for 401ks. It's great for us if we can get long. The idea is to try to hold runners as long as possible. So with that being said, let's just go, I'm always on the quest for a high quality trade. As a lot of you guys know, I pass on a lot of stuff during the day and I just wait for the bangers. And so this is a banger. Let me show you what's up. So I've got on the daily time frame, I really like this 66, 64.50. This is our current leg up, okay? If they play this and they get back above 66.70, it's going to squeeze. Okay, this is basically a version of a failed breakdown or whatever. But for me, it's just a daily leg up. The 66.70 is the trigger, and that would be a great spot to confirm that you're getting in. This is going to be our big pivot here, 66.85. If you recall, I even showed you that on the weekly TPO, we had the 66.84 low volume node. This is going to be significant for us to get above or below here. Okay, so and really it's not as much significant as it is this is the level we're going to be looking for continuation. Okay, so if 66.64 plays and gets back above 85, we could continue to make another all-time high. If not, then we could potentially push a little lower. Okay, so I normally don't mark these, but I did mark the ETH dailies because we're looking. There's not a whole lot of support up here. I mean, I'm just looking for anything that can kind of give me an idea. They came down and played this 73. I think it was, what day was that? Thursday. Almost played perfect, and I'll show you on the 4 hour. When we get to that. But I'll just show you. Played right here. 73. Played perfect. Boom. Okay. New all-time highs. Right. So this is essentially really close to that 70. So I drew this on here so that just from a daily time frame, we play the 64, we get back above 70, we get back above 73, and we're off and running. Okay. Now, the 66.58.75 is technically the daily leg up is untested, and I'm not going to get long specifically right there. There's actually a level on the 4 hour that we'll talk about. I'll just show it to you right now since we're talking about this segment. that's important to me. Okay, so first and foremost, let's go back to this 66, 64, 50. We have a 4-hour level at 66, 65, 75. Awesome confluence. Also the FBD at 66.70, which I told you was essentially just the reclaim for our leg up. This is also a monster wing play, guys. This is one of my favorite trades. So, I love these moves right here. Okay, we've actually, already swept the high. We come back down, we play this, we make a new high. So this is how, for me, this is a big time hold. Okay, but you never know what's going to happen, right? So if that doesn't work out, we have 66, 51, 75. It's technically our 4-hour leg to the high. This is going to be the last level of support here. And the reason I drew that daily on here at 58 was, for me, it's just another level for us to get above, right? So 51, you get above 58, back above 64, back above 73, back above 85, back above 18, etc. Right? So that's how I work this. That's how I understand where we're at. That's how I add into my trades and really just play the whole progression side of things. Okay? So as you can see here, we talked about the excess on the profile down here from Thursday. If you look, this is an inefficiency that needs cleaned up into 72. Guess what? If we roll down in here, that's this wick right here. Right, 70, 72. So a cleanup of that and a new low, totally plausible. And that's why I put these on here, so I understand the context of what needs to be, taken care of. Okay, and so as you can see here, this is a very large inefficiency down here, running all the way into this massive wick that we had on. I think that was, I can't remember what. Maybe that was. I don't think that was FOMC. I can't remember. Yeah, it was FOMC. Sorry, I just rolled over, so the context looks a little different here. So. With that being said, that is what I have for this segment. And again, you can see right here, and I want to show you this because I told you guys I would show you. This is the previous weekly value area high, previous weekly value area low, and the POC, right? So when we pull this over, you can see here. Remember, I told you if we get below 66.48, we move down. Well, why did I say that? Well, I said that because there's a 4-hour at 51. If this 4-hour at 51 doesn't hold, we are absolutely going to come down and clean up this inefficiency. Okay, and then I will just show you this right here. And I also talked about that previous weekly POC, as you recall, at 91. There's also a 4-hour here. So this is the other spot that we would basically come down, clean up this area, and potentially play this 65, 88, 50 4-hour. And then below, if you recall, I even said below 83, 65, 83 is a tested 4-hour. It gets ugly, and we start to come down and clean up this next spot. And let's just show you one more time so you get it. See, this is these areas in here. This is the 63 spot, etc. If we move below the 83, which is right here, whoop, right, this big selling area right here, move below the 83, we start to come down and clean all this up. Okay, so that's what I got there for this particular segment. All right, now let's go back to the daily time frame and look at the next area. The next area that I like here is the 65.16. And like I said, we don't really have any untested daily support for quite some time. I mean, it gets a little thin once we get underneath this this leg here at 66.51, that 4-hour, and essentially the daily close at 66, 64.50 could send us all the way down. We have a very large above-below pivot from September 5th that we're going to use to get above or below. And the next untested daily I have is from August 28th, and it's a top down from this leg here, and that is on that's at 65, 16, 75. I like this spot a lot too. When I show you on the 4-hour, you'll understand. And then the final leg up, the daily leg in this segment, is all the way down here at 63.98.25. It's a good spot. I like this area too. We've talked about this multiple times. And yeah, we really would need this to hold for this particular daily segment. Again, we talked about the weekly being much lower, which I'll show you it's all the way down here. We have the daily weekly at 62.68, because so a daily close underneath 63.98 would bring us down here more than likely. So we're just going to need to keep an eye on these dailies. Support is very thin, guys, very thin, as we continue to move up, basically in this monster move. So in order for us to continue our progression, essentially they need to hold this 64 and continue to keep going. So that's what I got on the dailies, weeklies, what have you. Let's go ahead and get down into the 4-hour real quick so I can show you guys what I'm looking at on the 4-hour time frame. and then we'll call it a day. So here's what we got on the 4 hour, and I pulled the daily over, or the weekly TP over here so you could see. So we talked about the 66.51 being our final leg in here, and obviously we talked about the 66, 65, 75, and the potential reclaim at 66.70. But as we know, a move below this this area here, this 4 hour at 66.51.75, which corresponds with our value area low from this week or last week, will push us down into the 65.88.50, and we talked about how we really need to stay above the 83. Well, that is this whole POC here, and we talked about how if we move below this, we've got this inefficiency down here. So we will continue to move, and I've got no untested support for quite some time. Okay, so as you can see, my next layer of untested support is 07. So we've got this TPO ledge at 52.50, call it 53. Well, guess what this is? This is our big 4 hour here that says bad below, right? And so just to show you where that's coming from, if we move below that, we've got some issues here, guys. Okay, so they're gonna move below this, and they're gonna come all the way down into 07. 07's my next one, and then 83. Okay, so just to show you guys, remember me telling you that we had the untested daily at 16. Well, I like this area because we actually have this low volume, thin volume area, as you can see right here. See this gray or the brown box? This is the brown box right here. It brings us right down into the daily at 65, 16, 75, literally to the tick. Okay, and then directly below that we have the 4 hour at 07. Okay, and then other than that, my next 4 hour is down here at 65.83. If you guys remember, we were waiting for that one for some time. We would want to see this play and reclaim 64.89 for a move higher. Okay, so that would be a great squeeze from down here. Whereas the 07, you'd want to see the 07 get back above the daily at 65.16. Okay, so that's how those two would play. Last but not least, 64.40, all the way down here at the lows. 64.40, nice 4 hour. Obviously, we want to see it regain 64.52 for a potential squeeze higher. It's located right down here by the 50-day moving average. So that's what I got for you guys here. We're going to stop right there. I think this is a good place to call it. This gives you enough context on this whole leg, and I will see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend. Cheers.